Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Legal Tech Hub product briefing. I'm Stephanie Wilkins, the Director of Content here at Legal Tech Hub, and today I am joined by Lauren Hurt, the Lead Legal Solutions Architect at Orbital. Welcome, Lauren. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to be looking at Orbital Copilot, but before we get to that, can you give us a little bit of a background of the company Orbital in general?
Yeah, absolutely. So Orbital was founded in 2018 with a pretty clear set mission, which was to accelerate real estate due diligence processes. I think ultimately what we found is that while real estate is the world's most valuable asset class, it's one of our most pervasive asset classes, it's also one of those pieces that has been tremendously reliant on tedious manual processes. So when William Pierce and Ed Boole set out, they recognized that there was a major gap in the marketplace in terms of this manual and tedious process. It was inefficient. It was oftentimes undervalued by clients. And so really set out to build real estate specific technology that could be used to alleviate some of the pains of that particular process. And where we've gotten to today is that Orbital is used across 5,000 real estate professionals each year and roughly, I think, 150,000 real estate transactions.
That's great. It's definitely an area ripe for innovation. And I know today you're going to specifically be showing us Orbital Copilot. And before we jump into the demo, could you maybe give us a little bit of a preview and set us up for what we're going to see today?
Yeah, absolutely. So Orbital Copilot is our AI focused product. And what it was really designed to do is focus on that real estate specific use cases. Ultimately, real estate is very unique. It is a tangible asset class. You see it, you touch it day in and day out. But with that, understanding what real estate looks like really involves a lot of understanding boundaries, a lot of understanding maps, understanding a lot of really old handwritten document types. And so, with what we've done in Orbital Copilot, is really create an AI product that's been built by real estate attorneys to optimize for that particular use case. And the one that I'm going to really focus on here today has been title and survey. So, this has been something that's really resonated for a lot of our customers in the US in particular, and is something we're really excited about because it really brings together the benefits of AI, what it can do to help read, analyze documents, as well as that sort of visual component of trying to understand what a particular property looks like. And certainly know from my own years in practice, it is a tremendously manual process that isn't necessarily correlated between how difficult or how expensive a deal is and how difficult this process is.
Well, I'm excited to see it. Why don't we just jump into the demo?
So what you'll see here on my left is the homepage for Orbital Copilot, which again is our AI focused product. And as I mentioned at the outset, what I'm going to show you here today is our title and survey workflow. But actually, before I get too far into that, one of the things I'm going to go into first is what we like to call our property visualizer. So this is a piece that we have built really to mirror what real estate attorneys are doing day in and day out. So what we oftentimes find is that for real estate attorneys, understanding the visual components of what a property is, where it's situated, what it looks like is actually a huge and tremendously important part of the process. And so what we've gone ahead and done is really integrated with a number of different kind of maps so that I'm able to go ahead and drop in any given address, regardless of whether I've uploaded documents. I've gone ahead into one where I've put a couple of documents in advance. And so if I go ahead and jump in here, I can go ahead and pop in my address for what this particular property is. So in this case, it is a property in Scottsdale, Arizona, which is this property right here. I'm able to zoom in, I'm able to zoom out. But more importantly, what I'm able to do, which is one of those really painful pieces we've often found in practice, is instead of combing through a bunch of local land records trying to figure out where it is that this property is situated, what might sit around it, be that a gas station on the corner that maybe I don't want next to the daycare center I intend to build, or condos or industrial where I think I'm about to build residential. I can put this tax parcel map filter on that allows me to click in, really quickly understand who owns it, what it's valued at, how it's zoned, alongside kind of ownership details. So, really quickly get this kind of essential lay of the land as to what the property looks like and how I'm going to understand it. And perhaps even more excitingly, I can then, in addition, kind of overlay different surveys or maps that I might have at that point in time to understand how they may interact with it as well. And I apologize, I will turn the tax parcels off because it starts getting a little bit busy there. But if I jump in here, I can make that more or less easy to see, zoom in, and really understand if I happen to have maybe a plat or a building plan, how that interacts with what my property looks like. So it really just right out of the gate allows me to understand that visual, tangible piece when, properties hit my desk that I don't understand. And so really teeing me up for kind of title and survey and what that process starts to look like. And so if I jump back here to the homepage, I'll now go into title and survey in particular for this property, but wanted to highlight that one right out of the gate.
That's just a really fascinating visual, and the overlays especially is just such a great way to go from just seeing the address in writing to actually seeing it live. I think that's fascinating.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And there's some interesting things we can do with it later on when you get your actual survey for the property and actual legal descriptions, where it also works to help you plot those and understand where particular documents through that title and survey review in particular impact the property. So, to kick off the title and survey review, I can jump in here just right from my homepage. And what Orbital Copilot's going to prompt me to do is upload my title commitment, upload my survey and zoning report if I have it, as well as a purchase agreement or term sheet or loan document. And what this will ultimately allow us to do is kind of populate those drafts that we get to at the end of the day. But whether you have them or not, Orbital Copilot's really set up to handle it. And so what I'm going to do today is pop in a title commitment, and I actually meant to grab the survey here as well. So I'll go ahead and pop that in, and a purchase and sale agreement. And so at this point in the process, Orbital Copilot's reading these documents, understanding and analyzing what these documents are and how they may interact. But I think more interestingly, from a real estate attorney's point of view, one of the big pain points almost administratively with title commitments has been that they are oftentimes these hyperlinked documents that have, you get one document that actually is linked with 20, 50,
Yeah.
whatever documents it may be, that you're having to actually go in and manually click on each of those links. Whereas what Orbital Copilot will allow us to do is actually go through, read all of those documents, and download them automatically into the platform. And so if I go ahead and jump on over here to once this process is completed, it usually just takes a couple of minutes, is that it's gone ahead and downloaded all of those different hyperlinks from the commitment. It's put them into folders so that it can understand those document relationships, be that we have a plat map alongside an affidavit of change. We have a CCNR alongside a bunch of amendments. And so really understanding that you're going to need to not only look at those documents, but think about these ones interact and how they're going to interact together, while also just alleviating some of that administrative burden of having to rename and download and pull all of these things in. But in the case that you don't have a hyperlink title commitment as well, then you can simply load the documents in. It will still go through this profiling exercise. It will folder them, do all of those component parts for you, but you just pull the documents in yourself. So it really works across all sorts of different title cases. It doesn't need to be a hyperlinked commitment. So once I've gone ahead and pulled all of these documents in, again, which just takes a couple of minutes depending on whether I've got 20 exceptions, 50
Mhm.
exceptions, 150 exceptions, and go ahead and pull those through. And what I'm now able to do is actually kick off my title review. So when I do that process, what it's going to do right out of the gate here is want to understand a little bit of context about what it is that I'm actually here and trying to do today. Because one of the things I think about real estate in particular is it's heavily contextual. So you're really wanting, you know, how much you care about something really is influenced by, for example, where it is or what you're ultimately going to try to do with that particular property. So, by way of example here, let's say I'm working with a client who's purchasing vacant land to develop. And what this will do is allow, as Orbital Copilot, this again, this goes to sort of the agentic workflow process, is to think about not only how to approach the problem, but how to approach the problem through the lens that you would be in practice. You know, how much you're going to care about certain issues. An easement that runs through the building is suddenly a much bigger problem if it's an existing structure as opposed to something that you're now trying to build and understand. Maybe I could maybe plan around this or I could adjust for this.
Right,
So
right.
those situations look really quite different. And so that process will run. And to jump ahead to what that ultimately looks like is we really pull together a very thorough analysis of all the things that an attorney, as they're going through their title memo or their title checklist, is going to be looking out for. Some of that being things like basic details, but some of that being really substantive components, right? Like comparing those legal descriptions across title commitments, investing deeds, which can be a hugely kind of manual and granular process to really do that both efficiently and also help you do so quite accurately because it can look across all those different document types. And what we've also built into the platform, which goes to its wider applicability across a lot of different practice groups, a lot of different teams, is what we call review and approve. So this is a real collaborative platform as well that allows, for example, a junior to go through, help validate each of these answers. We have, as I think many do these days, the ability to click through to the citations within the document. You can mark off that you've read them and understand all of that. But what you're also able to do is, for example, if something's shown up that, is giving you pause or is going to be a potential deal breaker for this particular client, it makes it very easy to flag it and then share this as a project with the senior on the deal so they can similarly come in very quickly, click to exactly where the issue came up and understand that problem. I think the other piece, which goes to the visual, heavily visual kind of component of what you're doing when you're looking at commercial real estate, is these documents are oftentimes incredibly difficult to read and understand. So it's all well and good that, yeah, we've got a warranty deed here, but this was from, I believe, 1875. And so in practice, oftentimes you'd be reading this, attempting to understand it, you'd be combing over it with a magnifying glass, hoping for the best. And so what we're able to do is actually convert a full digital text version that really is optimized for these difficult to read use cases and put that into kind of an optimized format that really preserves a lot of the original structure of the document itself. So you've now got this nice document, you can download it into Word, you can easily copy and paste, but really understand the content of what that document says. And I think we've seen that play out both well and maybe not so well for certain customers. On the one side, you now know what it says, but as we've seen, you now know what it says. And so you're now fighting to see if you can get it removed. But ultimately, I see it as a good thing because it allows you to really mitigate that risk in a way you might not have been able to do before. So what the system's really designed to do is allow whoever's doing that primary review work their way through each of these sorts of exception documents, various things. It will do this similar analysis on the survey. And then once you've gone through and approved each of these, it's then going to prompt you. So if I go back to the feed here, whether you want to actually create any sort of final outputs off the back of that. Do I want an aggregated issues list? So something that a partner can very easily understand what those points are, pass them along to a client, and a process that would have taken hours before can be done in a matter of minutes. It can give you an initial draft of that title objection letter that really pulls in all of these different elements from all of these different documents and stitches those together. Or again, that sort of client facing memo. And so, maybe just as the best example, I will jump into a title objection letter, which again allows you, it's pulled in kind of key information, not only from that. So, this is where that purchase agreement I uploaded at the outset comes in, because it's filled out all of these details for me. It's populated things like addresses, it's populated things like headers, all of these component parts. It's pulled different details across the purchase contract, across the title commitment, across the survey, across all of those different documents, thought about that transaction context, and then really stitched them together to create this coherent letter. It makes endorsement recommendations. It makes all of these sort of manual processes. So I'm not having to go pull up this book and go, which endorsements are available in Arizona, or trying to piece that all together. So really, really useful in terms of getting you to that initial draft in a matter of minutes as opposed to a matter of hours, and really taking out some of that, I suppose, historically very granular level work. So, one other, which is closely related to this title and survey workflow, is that oftentimes if working off of a purchase contract, or you might be working off of a ground lease that's got a very detailed timeline and structure to it. And so, the only other one I was going to highlight, which is a very similar process to what we just shown across title and survey, is once you've uploaded a purchase and sale contract. So, for example, for this property, what it's going to go ahead and do is, again, it will create this sort of comprehensive analysis that goes through all of the critical dates, pulls out all those key details. But I think more interestingly is that it really takes you to this kind of final closing checklist, critical dates list, that is one of those pieces that oftentimes you're trying to get people to pull together. You're having to calculate individual dates. It's a lot of math for people who do not necessarily like math, trying to make sure that it's accurate and that everybody's aligned. And so, this piece, it really takes it all out of the process, creates this full critical dates list instead of having to maybe wait for it from the title company or spend all that time doing math. And then finally, creates an exportable calendar invite that you can then simply import into your Outlook. So again, this one was really just a quick one, but to really just highlight there, one of those real estate very specific workflows. It has a real pattern. It's something that our title companies use a lot. It's something that our law firms use a lot, because ultimately, again, it's one of those processes that takes quite a bit of time and also is quite challenging to ensure you're doing so accurately.
That's great. This is great to see. I know some people in real estate who will be excited to watch this. It's very clear that this has all been built from the perspective of somebody who knows the industry really well. And for those who are watching, we will put a URL up at the bottom of the screen if you want to get in touch with Orbital and find out more information. And thank you so much for showing that to us today. And it was great to speak with you. So thanks for joining us. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Lauren and her team at Orbital. And have a great day, everyone.